General Manager's report.
General Manager. Thank you, Mr. President, board members. A number of things. One is that in terms of diesel price, just so you know that although the per barrel price has been kind of marching up, this week's average has been 282, and for the year we've been averaging 284, so we're just kind of really right in that. What's at least been happening is that the major differential that has been on diesel, a substantial premium penalty for diesel over gasoline has abated. It's not down to where it's been historically, but at least it's staying more in line with the gasoline side. Obviously, we've watched the futures, you no doubt do as well, and that has been marching up, although it's abated a little bit in recent weeks. Next, ridership. In December we had 7.6 million trips on buses, Max and West. It ends up being a decline of about 6.5% as compared to December of 2008. Some of this you saw in the media as well. Max was up slightly, but obviously to a large degree because of the expansion of the Green Line, the extension of the Green Line. But it's clear the ridership is impacted by the region's double-digit unemployment, and obviously some of our right-sizing of the service back as well, as our revenues have decreased. I would say that we're doing some additional analysis, but you can really see the effect of that unemployment when you start looking at the fact that our peak hour ridership is really more being reduced than midday and off-hour weekend included. So that effect of that unemployment really is showing up in our numbers as well. Third, Olivia, Neil, and I were in Washington, D.C. last week, both meeting with the Federal Transit Administration individuals as well as our congressional delegation, really the whole of the delegation, including the airplane ride is always helpful because you get to be able to see people like Greg Walton, which we wouldn't probably typically see it anyway otherwise, and so that's always very helpful. We really were stressing three main issues relative to the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail, and that was one is that the funding level needs to be able to remain at the 60% federal, 40% local, which has been our pattern on our previous projects, and although there is no final commitment on what that will be until we go really through the final design application process, which will begin here in a few weeks. But again, no discouraging comments either. None of the comments that have been in previous years where just we're not going to go there with that. Those were not the top comments that were delivered. Second, we addressed the very important what we call fish window. That is, because of the bridge construction, the times that one can be in the water in terms of water work because of endangered salmon means that we really need to be able to keep this on its critical path. Construction-wise, we need to be able to be in the water for construction purposes in the summer of next summer, that is 2011. That requires a whole series of things to be able to happen, not by any means impossible, and by the way, there are no compromises on the fish protection issues here. It's only around the actual processing of the paper so that we can get to the approval to both enter final design, that be in the President's budget and so on for full funding grant agreement, to be able to have that prior to that fish window opening. There was a great understanding and appreciation of that. I don't think they understood what fish windows were. I think they were kind of having to imagine a fish window, a window watching fish or something, and we had to make clear that in the Northwest this is a very common issue and a very important issue. Lastly, we wanted to be able to stress that what has been a historic cap on the amount of maximum annual appropriation under full funding grant agreement had historically been around $100 million. And what that does to this project, and it has very frankly done to other projects around the country, is that you really stretch out the payment from the federal government, thereby increasing borrowing costs, which is shared by both the local governments and the federal government. It doesn't make any sense to be able to be spending more money doing that. As a result, we were seeking the ability to be able to be at a higher level than that. Again, I think from FTA, very encouraged by the fact that they would like at least to be able to evaluate what the construction drawdown requirements are, and to see if it would be possible to be able to really match the federal appropriations against that. One of the things that is in the full funding grant agreement actually is a table that lists out what the expected federal appropriations are throughout the full payment of those of that full funding grant agreement. Still more to be told, but those issues were very important and were really key to us be able to move ahead. We also stressed throughout with the delegation how important the previous stimulus dollars were, both for the projects that have been put in place, but also to be able to offset some of our operating costs, allowed us therefore not to be able to have some of the service reductions that we would have otherwise, and that it is a message that's being delivered really by transit properties across the country, that in this tough economic time, everybody is facing very severe reductions in operations. A number are raising fares, not insignificantly as well. That's something we've resisted doing, although modest increases keep up with inflation is something we've always done. But this is an issue that's happening across the country and really needs to be able to be addressed. I think at this stage it's still too early to speculate very much on whether, what or if anything the Congress is willing to do in this, but it's an issue that we certainly stressed, and there was, I think, a great level of sympathy among all of the delegation.